She was 21 when she first felt the desert heat press against her skin like a living thing. The air in Iraq did not feel empty, it felt heavy, full of sand, fear, and unspoken prayers. She adjusted the helmet that was too large for her head and listened to the radio crackle with distant voices. In that moment, she was not a symbol, not a headline, not a debate. She was a soldier. Back home, people still argued about whether women belonged in war. Out here, the war did not care. The road did not care. The explosion buried under the dirt did not care. The enemy watching from behind broken walls did not care. She learned quickly that courage did not arrive as a loud feeling. It arrived quietly in the moment when fear said stop and duty said move. Her hands shook the first time she checked a vehicle. They shook again the second time. By the third time, they were steady, not because she was fearless, but because others depended on her. She was called names, she was doubted, she was tested. Some men looked at her like she was a mistake. Others looked at her like she was fragile. Few saw what she carried inside. The strength to stand guard for 12 hours. The strength to lift wounded bodies. The strength to keep moving when sleep was a memory. At night, she wrote letters she never sent. She wrote about home, about quiet mornings and familiar streets. She did not write about the blood or the screams, or the way silence after an explosion felt louder than noise. She did not want to be remembered as broken. Another woman flew helicopters over hostile ground. Her aircraft shook under enemy fire. She kept her eyes forward, hands tight on the controls. If she went down, others would die. So she flew. Again and again. Mission after mission. Her fear stayed locked behind discipline. Another woman served as a medic. She ran toward gunfire when others ran away. She pressed her hands into wounds and whispered, "Stay with me." Sometimes they stayed. Sometimes they did not. She carried their faces with her long after the desert faded from her boots. They were told they were not in combat. Yet every day they stepped outside the wire. Every patrol was a gamble. Every smile from a stranger could hide danger. Every shadow could hold death. They proved themselves again and again. Still the jokes came. The doubt came. The quiet pressure to be twice as good and never complain. One woman remembered being told she was a distraction, that her presence made men careless. Later, those same men would trust her with their lives. Trust grows faster than respect in war. When convoys rolled out, she checked her weapon like everyone else. When bullets snapped past, she did not scream. She dropped, she returned fire, she did her job. Afterward, no one questioned her place. War stripped away illusions. It revealed who could endure. Not muscles, not gender, but will. In small moments, humanity survived. Shared candy jokes over bad coffee, laughter in the dark. Women and men bonded by danger, by exhaustion, by survival. But sexism did not disappear. Some battles were invisible. Unwanted attention, harassment, silence. Reporting meant being labeled weak. So many carried it alone. Still they stayed. Still they served. One woman lost her closest friend to an explosion. She held her as life slipped away. She screamed, then she went silent. The mission continued. Grief waited. At night she stared at the ceiling, counting breaths. Morning came anyway. It always did. Beyond Iraq, in Afghanistan, women walked mountain paths beside special operations teams. They gathered intelligence, spoke to local women, searched homes. Their presence opened doors no man could open. Their courage changed outcomes. One of them was killed on patrol. Her name was whispered through the ranks. A reminder that sacrifice did not ask permission. Back home, parades showed smiling faces. The truth stayed quieter. Nightmares. Guilt. The struggle to feel normal. Some returned to families who could not understand. How do you explain the sound of a helicopter at night? How do you explain missing the clarity of danger? They fought for recognition, for benefits, for the right to say they were warriors. History slowly caught up. Rules changed, doors opened. But progress was written in blood, not ink. These women were not trying to prove anything. They were simply answering a call. They stood watch while others slept. They carried the weight, so others did not have to. They face the enemy outside and prejudice within. Their stories are not about being women in war. They are about being human in hell, about choosing duty over fear, about standing tall when the world doubts you, about surviving and remembering. When we speak of combat heroes, we must include them, not as exceptions, but as equals. She came home older than her years, carrying the desert inside her. Crowds felt strange. Silence felt dangerous. She slept with one ear open, waiting for a sound that never came. People thanked her for her service and moved on. They did not see how she flinched at fireworks, how her hands searched for a weapon that was no longer there, how memories arrived without warning. She tried to fit back into a world that felt too soft, too loud, too unaware. Grocery aisles felt like narrow streets. A car backfires felt like incoming fire. Her body remembered what her mind wanted to forget. Some nights, she dreamed of the convoy, of dust rising, of faces frozen in a second that never ended. She woke with her heart racing, breathing fast, counting shadows. Another woman came home missing a piece of herself she could not name. She smiled in photos. She laughed at jokes. But inside, she felt hollow. Survival had a cost. They were told to be grateful, to be strong, to move on. Strength became another uniform they wore even when it hurt. One woman fought a different battle with paperwork and disbelief. She was asked if she was really there, if she really saw what she said she saw. Her scars were invisible, so they were questioned. Another stood in a classroom, trying to focus. Her mind drifted back to radio calls and coded voices. Education felt harder than war. At least war made sense. Some found peace in service again. Others found it in distance, running, writing, helping those who came after them. They reached out to each other. Women who understood without explanation. Shared glances carried entire histories. You did not have to speak to be heard. They remembered the ones who did not come back. Names etched into memory. Faces forever young. Promises that could never be kept. Time passed. The world changed. New debates, new wars, new headlines. Still their stories waited. They were not asking for praise. Only truth. Only to be seen. They had stood in fire and did not disappear. They had endured and returned. Different but unbroken. When history is told, it must not whisper their names. It must speak them clearly, firmly, with respect. Because they were there. Because they carried the same fear, the same courage, the same cost. They were soldiers. They are veterans. They are witnesses.